it looks like the political bipolar situation may stay longer than everybody wants. Could you forecast what global competition and cooperation will look like in semiconductor industry in 2022 as well as the longer term?
The longer term is tough to forecast. I think it will probably get worse before it gets better. I think the one of the challenges is, both sides are sort of digging in. President Xi, and through the things like common prosperity and self-reliance, is sort of pushing Chinese companies to do more in the hard tech area, to compete more in semiconductors, to reduce their dependence. So that will continue in areas like semiconductors and AI. But I think that sort of decoupling is really, really tough, because there are such close relationships, in manufacturing being a good example, where Chinese companies are critical to the manufacturing part of the equation. So it sort of depends on what part of the tech stack you look at, right? I mean, there's already sort of bifurcation at the top on social media and search and that kind of thing, right? I hate it when I can't use Google in China or Twitter, but I love to use WeChat and and Alipay when I'm there. So there's already sort of separation at certain parts of the stack. But as you get down into the lower parts, the tech, the hard part, that's where, again, companies, for example, don't want to have to build equipment for China and for the U.S., right? They want to build one thing. I don't think there's going to be two supply chains in the semiconductor industry or in the mobile telecommunications equipment area, because it's just too inefficient to do that, right? And it's very inefficient, for example, for China to try to reproduce all elements of the semiconductor supply chain, right? They can't really do it. No one country can do that, right? Think of the wasted investment, for China to try to develop all those companies that are already doing world-class work in that area. It wouldn't make sense, right? And it would just be sort of duplicative, and it would be really hard to do, and it would divert resources that could be, better used elsewhere. So I think there are certain parts of the tech stack that are going to be really hard, and there's no real desire on the part of companies to separate them. In certain areas, yeah, of course, yeah, we'll probably all use Google, and in China, I'll use Baidu, right? Social media is another good one. Although, of course, TikTok is doing very well in the US, has like 100 million users, right? So when there's a really good, innovative Chinese company like ByteDance, that, then you're going to see some crossover there. And of course, that's going to be there's a issue we didn't talk about, which is sort of data and access to data, which is another part of this, of the sort of the U.S.-China, tech competition. And that's going to, in 2022, that's going to probably heat up a little bit. And, we saw under the Trump administration attempts to ban TikTok and WeChat in the U.S., but it turned out to be, again, very hard, because a lot of court challenges. You can't ban communication in the U.S., it turns out, and there was a lot of challenges to that. And so I think in some areas, it's going to be much harder to pull apart the two systems. The hope is that the Biden administration, for example, will develop a much more long-term strategy on China, because the business community is sort of caught in the middle of this, right? I mean, these are the people I talk to every day. The business community is very concerned, because they want to have access to China. They want to get back to something like the trade talks that broke down, where there was really, really serious discussion about reducing some of the barriers, for example, to market access to U.S. companies in China, which those companies still care about, right? And so, getting back to sort of a more constructive relationship, where their U.S. and the Chinese government are talking about these complicated issues that need to be addressed. And then areas like digital trade too, right? I mean, China has just signed up to try to join the CPTPP, which is a huge trade agreement, which sets a really high bar for China around things like data and cross-border data transfers. If you're a company, or if you're a country in Asia, you probably would love to have both China and the US, for example, in a trade agreement. Setting a high bar for China to meet, that would be good for everybody in the region, to improve digital trade, for example. So I hope we can get in 2022, maybe toward the end of 22, after the midterm elections, depending on how those goes, figure out where the US and China are going to go in their relationship. Because right now things are not good. There's not a lot of dialogue, but that will affect how the tech sector pieces play out. If relations get worse, that separation may get worse. If relations get better, and then people will step back and say, hey, this is probably not a good thing for companies and for innovation going forward. And, everybody loses if that bifurcation of the tech stack, goes too much deeper. So I think, I hope in 2022, we'll see a little bit more innovative thinking on both sides.